What is going on, guys? It's the Inside the Blue podcast, and today breaking down the Giants' Week 1 loss to the Minnesota Vikings, a game that I did not expect to get this out of hand. The Giants put up 2 field goals, and that was all. No touchdowns at all. They didn't score any in the preseason, and they didn't feel like scoring in Week 1. Graham Gano with 2 field goals, so that was cool, but that's unacceptable. This Vikings team, they're not a top team in the NFC. They're not going to, be some super threat. I don't think they're very good. And the Giants looked even worse. They made Sam Darnold look unbelievable in Week 1. He made, I think, his first 12 completions, 12 of 12, something like that. He throws a pick that was intercepted by the rookie Musayu. But nonetheless, that's Sam Darnold. You're going to be taking out a lot better QBs, especially 2 in your own division, and you're struggling to find out what Sam Darnold is trying to do. He's slinging it to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison before Addison left with an ankle injury. Jones runs all over you, 100-plus yards. He scores a touchdown as well. And I think let's get into the defense first, because they didn't play great, but they didn't play as bad as the offense. The offense really was the main story and probably the main talking point of today's video. With the defense, it was not great. And if there's 2 players to name to talk about, it's Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeaux. Kayvon Thibodeaux, of course, a guy who had 11.5 sacks. This year, we wanted him to take a big step forward and to get to the QB more. All he had was a QB hit. And that was all. Nothing really spectacular, nothing that we look forward to. Because we were talking so much in the offseason. Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeaux, Brian Burns. This is going to be a top unit. And the only person that showed up of the 3 was Dexter Lawrence, right? Dexter Lawrence with a ton of pressures, had a sack to start the game. Kayvon and Brian Burns, they combined for 3 tackles, a QB hit, and like a pressure, I think. Just not good enough as we talk about the bad, yeah. So 3 tackles, a QB hit, and 1 pressure combined. Dexter Lawrence was good. Like, this defense has to rebound against a bad Washington team, taking on a rookie QB in Jaden Daniels, but we're focused on the Vikings versus Giants. And this game, when Dexter Lawrence got that first sack and the Giants recovered that fumble, I had really good vibes, like really high. I thought this was going to be a really close game, like the wild card game in 2022 and the regular season game. You get blown out in your own building. You get a bunch of, great names in the building. Eli Manning, Phil Simms, all these guys, and they see up 6 points. Giants fans leaving after the pick 6 early. Then Daniel Jones gets booed when he's leaving the stadium. Giants fans are fed up, and they have every right to be. We're in year 6. Like, I feel like fans forget that. We're in year 6 of Daniel Jones. Many other teams have moved on from their QB. The Patriots have moved on from Mac Jones. The Bears moved on from Justin Fields. I'm blanking on other ones, but there are definitely other quarterbacks that we said we don't want you anymore. We want to move on, rebuild, restructure, relook the QB position. But the Giants are like, hey, Daniel Jones, he's our quarterback, and we believe in him. Bullshit. You believe in Daniel Jones? That has to be some, stupidity in the front office. I know they can't just say, yeah, we don't want Daniel Jones anymore, but still, it's year 6. Joe Shane did give Daniel Jones the contract of $40 million. And the contract right now looks terrible, right? Daniel Jones is in year 6, still can't figure out a defense, still can't figure out how to sling the ball downfield, has 0 confidence at all. He's running away, he's creating sacks, but the defense, getting back to that, just no pressures at all on Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold had a very easy day, in my opinion. There really wasn't much to do. I mean, when they did somewhat get to him, he would just sling it to Aaron Jones or Chandler. it's just bad. It's really bad to start off week one. Bad start for Shane Bowen's first game. But I'm not going to put enough blame and all the stock into the defense for the blame. The offense scored 6 points. That's bad. That's what are we doing, Daniel Jones? I could go on and on about Daniel Jones this, Daniel Jones that. I had a lot of confidence in this game because Daniel Jones has a wide receiver one now that he's been asking for so long, and he hasn't gotten it. So he gets Malik Neighbors, an offensive line that actually did pretty good in the pass protection game. Offensive line in the run game, not as much. Singletary, I think, 10 carries for 37 yards. Nothing spectacular. The offense was so predictable every single snap. You knew what you were doing. You know what they were doing. Checkdowns after checkdowns, and just not good. Daniel Jones with one throw, 20-plus yards, and I know the commentators were saying it all day long. The safeties didn't have to do anything in this game because Daniel Jones wasn't testing them at all. There was no deep shots whatsoever. One throw, one of 20-plus yards. You look at that and you're like, what are we doing? We're not even testing. Sure, if he threw it downfield, he probably would have had 4 interceptions instead of 2. But the thought of it is that we needed to test these safeties. We didn't test them at all. We didn't do anything to strike fear into the Vikings. The Vikings even said it in their locker room before, hey, we don't view the Giants as much of a threat, and we're going to kick their ass. And, yeah, we got our ass whooped in our own stadium. 100th anniversary. And that's how we start the season. And getting into, this game as well, I honestly thought the Giants, I had them winning in our record prediction, and I had them winning in a close game, but this was not close at all. Daniel Jones, 21 or 40, 181 yards. And I don't think he hit that 100-yard mark until the third or fourth quarter. I thought Daniel Jones was honestly going to get benched after the first 2 quarters. I thought coming out of the half, send a message. But no, not at all. This was nothing at all. This was a terrible, terrible game of Daniel Jones. Probably one of the worst that we've seen out of Daniel Jones. What are we doing? Daniel Jones obviously isn't good. And that's the problem, is that we're in year 6, and Daniel Jones is still our quarterback. Say what you want about the contract. I don't need to get much more into the contract. The fact of the matter that Daniel Jones is still your quarterback and you decided to pay him is already a red flag. Because the offense was non-existent. Malik Neighbors was cool, 5 receptions for 66 yards. He was open in the end zone. Daniel Jones throws an interception, a terrible one. But I guess from a fan perspective, after the first 2 quarters, after honestly the first 2 quarters, I guess we could get a little impression of this. Boo! Boo! Just all boos. Just terrible. Just a terrible look for the New York Giants in their Week 1 slate. They have Washington next week. My goodness. If Daniel Jones pulls that shit again, I don't want him playing at all. I'd rather rock Tommy DeVito / Drew Lock. Is Drew Lock spectacular? No. But I'd honestly throw Tommy DeVito in for Week 2 against the Washington Commanders if things go south in the first 2 quarters again. Because Daniel Jones and Brian Daboll, we know the relationship isn't that good. We know deep down that in Hard Knocks and in that staff that they don't want Daniel Jones as their quarterback. Brian Daboll has seen enough. Last year, before Daniel Jones got injured, he was terrible. 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. And getting back to touchdowns, by the way, ever since Daniel Jones has signed that $160 million contract, he has thrown 3 touchdowns to the other team and 2 touchdowns in favor of the New York Giants. How the hell do we allow that? What is going on there? What are we doing? Sure, was the play calling great as we get into Brian Daboll? No, the play calling was not great. But you look at what the Giants had to deal with. A defense that causes chaos. And, like, the Giants try to play quick game. And I said it in the preview pod. If they play quick game, they are going to get hurt. And they are not going to score very much. And what do you know? Giants play quick game. They do a terrible wide receiver screen with Wan'Dale Robinson. That was as predictable as it gets. And a great play by, who was it, Van Winkle, I think his name was. He intercepts Daniel Jones, pick 6. And Daniel Jones is still out there when they're down 28-6. Just terrible all around. Like, the defense was bad. Of course, Deonte Banks getting cooked. Dory Jackson with definitely not a PI call that actually led to a touchdown. That probably was, honestly, maybe some of the turning points in this game. But I think if you're Brian Daboll and you're Daniel Jones, you have to look at it like, hey, Daniel, if you're going to play like that in the first half, don't expect to play very much this season. We much rather have DeVito and Drew Lock than you. Because Daniel Jones' confidence is at the all-time low. This guy can't complete short passes. He doesn't have any confidence still, even with Malik Neighbors, to throw the football downfield. Just all around, just terrible in every aspect. Because the problem that I have with Daniel Jones, and I still do every day, is that this guy cannot read a field, and it's year 6. Daniel Jones can't do any of that. Those 2 interceptions, 2 bad ones. He's trying to scramble too much, and then he just throws it out of bounds, so that's a play that ends quickly. But Daniel Jones is the main talking point of Week 1. I think if the Giants get an average to slightly above average start, this game is probably more like a 28-21 loss, 28-17 loss, because it's like the same thing over and over again. Defense holds for as long as it can, and then it breaks out, and the offense just goes 3 and out, long third downs, penalties, 9 penalties in the game for the Giants for 95 yards. Delay of games. I feel like when I was watching all of the NFL games, clock management was not great for any team. Bunch of delay of games, offsides, legal formations. The Giants didn't have legal formations, but yeah, bad luck. Giants are 0-1. Washington's 0-1. Dallas and Eagles, of course, picked up wins. Dak Prescott signs a $60 million deal for some interdivision news. But, yeah, I think just with this team, a lot needs to change quickly before things get really out of hand. Because I did say, from week 3 to week 8, it's a gauntlet. Like, you're taking on Cleveland, you're taking on Dallas, you're taking on a bunch of good teams. So I think if you're the New York Giants, we look at this game, we watch the film, definitely figure out the running game, because the pass protection was actually solid. I will say that. And this is a team that allowed 85 sacks last season. They allow 5 today, or not today, in the game. But I think if we're Brian Daboll, definitely change up the play calling. I'm not saying he can't call plays, because I definitely think he can. But the fact that we just did quick game and all this, if Daniel Jones doesn't have the confidence to go out there and play football, then why are we throwing him out there in a situation? Why? Because we picked up, $40 million deal? If you're not winning and you're not, providing offense, I don't see why we're throwing him out there at all in that second half. The game was out of reach, and the team stunk in week 1. And back-to-back week 1s, first week 1, Dallas 40-0. This year, just embarrassing. Like, us Giants fans are so fed up with just bad week 1s and thinking that the season is already over. We were so excited for Malik Neighbors, who had a pretty decent debut, 5 receptions, 66 yards. But, there's so many problems with this team, right? No pass rush at all. We needed pass rush. We trade for Brian Burns. He goes non-existent. So many problems already in week 1, and I thought Joe Shane addressed it. I'm not saying this is Joe Shane's fault, because he doesn't play out there, and he doesn't, he doesn't control what Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau does. But definitely just we need more pass rush for the week 2. I definitely expect it because Washington is worse than the Vikings. I will say that despite having a new QB, their roster isn't very good. And I think the Giants can win week 2, but like all of these games are in the hands of Daniel Jones. And what I mean by that, like if he's terrible, the Giants are not going to have any chance of winning unless there's a replacement at halftime or a replacement in the quarter. Like we can't, like honestly, I'm going to make the prediction right now. Daniel Jones will not be the starter in week 4. I think he starts week 2. I think he starts week 3. I think week 4, Brian Daboll is going to say, all right, whatever our record is, whether it's 0-3, 1-2, 2-1, whatever it is. I think if it's 2-1, then he's definitely going to start. But I don't see them being 2-1 because they didn't win week 1. Like the NFC is a good division. Like it's a good, like there's a lot of strong teams. The Giants are just at the bottom right now. They're with Washington. They're with Carolina. Like they're with those bad teams because their quarterback situation. Scratch out Washington because Jaden Daniels is in his first season. But Bryce Young looks terrible. Daniel Jones looks terrible. And like it's not like Joe Shane didn't give him a wide receiver and a good offensive line. Daniel Jones just cannot play in the NFL anymore. That's simple. He sold today. I keep saying today, but he sold week 1. And if this continues, then it's going to be a very long season for us and a lot of losing. And I expected this team to come out with, 6 to 7 wins. I don't know if I see that anymore. And maybe that's a week 1 overreaction, but you look at their schedule upcoming. They got the Washington Commanders at Washington. They go to Cleveland. Cleveland with a poor performance against a really good Dallas team. But the success with the pass rush helped the Dallas Cowboys defeat the Cleveland Browns. The Giants' pass rush was terrible. So if they even want to have a chance to beating Deshaun Watson and the Browns and Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, that pass rush needs to be better. And that starts with Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. Like they get no leeway. I'm not giving them any leeway at all. I said Kayvon Thibodeau needs to be more consistent. He was 61st in pass rush win rate. That is not going to cut it. If you want an elite edge rusher, you gotta fix it. You gotta find ways to defeat these offensive linemen. I saw it all in camp. I saw you beat Taylor Decker. I saw you have good reps. Where am I seeing that? You're not. You're getting ragdogged by Christian Darrisaw. Or, all these offensive linemen just destroying them, except for Dexter Lawrence, who was a very big problem and a good problem. That's doing everything he can. He helped with the interception, and he got the first sack of the game. Like, I feel bad for Dex because, the reporters were like, what are your thoughts on the booing? And, of course, he doesn't respect it. No player wants to get booed off the turf. Nobody. If you're an athlete, you don't want to get booed off by your home fans, and especially in week 1. But that's what we saw in week 1. We saw a poor performance. We got to bounce back. Is Daniel Jones going to lose Brian Daboll a job? I guess that's how we're going to wrap this up because I think Brian Daboll is a good coordinator. I think he's good at calling plays, and I think he's good. I think Daniel Jones is holding him back, and I'm keeping them both accountable. Brian Daboll was awful in week 1 in play calling. Daboll, threw too many checkdowns, too many predictable stuff, and Brian Flores ate it up. But Brian Daboll also has Daniel Jones as his quarterback. Daniel Jones definitely missed a bunch of guys if I go back to that tape. So it's a really bad look for Daniel Jones. It's a bad look for Brian Daboll for his job security. Do I think Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are going to get fired? No. I think if they go 4-13, Mara will let them get their quarterback, see what they could do. And if nothing is complete by year 5, then Mara might say, all right, I've seen enough. But I've said it multiple times. The way that Joe Shane keeps his job is building a competitive roster that can compete. This week there wasn't much. Brian Daboll said that there was some fight, and they said they did a good job in some aspects, but overall, not a great look to start week 1. A lot to talk about. There's so much with Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton getting some good reps. Jalen Hyatt, I don't even know if he played. I think he took 1 snap, so we'll see how that goes in week 2. But that's going to do it for this podcast, of course. Giants lose 28-6. 2 field goals from Goodell. A pick 6 from Daniel Jones. Is Daniel Jones going to play week 2? I think he will. Do I think Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito have a chance to play in week 2? I think that's definitely a possibility. But if they lose week 2, then we have a lot of problems. But yeah, of course, let's go Big Blue. Let's find a way to win week 2. Let's get back to it, and let's get back on track, and let's go 1-1. All right, but that's gonna do it for you guys. Giants lose, very depressing, but we got week 2 ahead of us, and let's fix it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and of course, leave a comment on your thoughts of week 1. See you guys